Hello, my name is Major Mike Webb, and I am a retired field grade Army officer, branch of military intelligence, who formerly served as the operations officer for all Army strategic counterintelligence in the continental United States. And the topic of the day arises from recent alarming reports in the news media about new variants of a novel coronavirus and more infectious strains about which apparently some in the scientific community in a pandemic panic have become concerned. So, for the next few minutes, we shall be providing an information brief to address some of these concerns and to correct some misinformation being disseminated by the news reporters who, more likely than not, as in our current example, medical doctors nor actual scientists by training or experience, but rather just reporters trying to take in a fire hose of information about complex topics under pressure, and especially in a pandemic panicked environment, more times than not, they do not always get things right. In the very first major report on a novel coronavirus emerging in China, the World Health Organization expert epidemiologist stated as one of the primary concerns and one of the best practices was to make sure that the general public is most informed about the virus so that they can use that information to be prepared. This briefing is unclassified. In the last segment, we presented an information briefing in which you were introduced to Maggie Fox, the health news editor for CNN at the DC National Affiliate Office for that broadcasting network. And you were introduced to her story about everything we are alleged to know about the new strains of a novel coronavirus, where she informed some and reminded others that viruses mutate because that is what viruses do. If this is news to you, perhaps you need to grab a pen and piece of paper and jot that down because it may be on the final exam. Continuing in Maggie's informative piece of, shall we say to be polite, journalism, she reported that for the new variants are especially worrisome, and to keep things interesting with sufficient proficiency to escape those who even may have been awarded a credential for a liberal arts education, but somehow escaped coursework and logic to enable a discerning reader to notice the appeals of deploying the fallacy of authority trapped in the white lab coat bias. She includes a quote: "The variants that have been identified recently seem to spread more easily. They're more transmissible, which can lead to increased number of cases and increased stress on our already overtaxed system," Dr. Rochelle Walensky, the newly appointed director of the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, said in a briefing Wednesday. Now to Maggie, who found it breaking newsworthy 1 year into a public health crisis that has claimed the lives of approaching 500,000 American fatalities, to announce that viruses mutate because that is what viruses do. This statement from the new director at CDC is apparently perceived in her mind as an authoritative statement. But if you were attentively listening, you may have picked up on some important clues couched in precatory or tentative cautionary statements, like the reported assertion that the new variants only seem to spread more readily. Granted, it is the doctor's first days in a new job, but why would she express so much caution about a statement about the new variants that Maggie reported had some worried in the medical community and science community, especially as a credentialed and experienced medical professional? This is unclear because she breaks from the cautionary statement to assert, as the new director for CDC, conclusively that the new variants are definitely more transmissible, but provides us no empirical analysis to support this determinative conclusion. But then Dr. Walensky again falls back on caution to suggest that because of this greater facility in transmission, this can, and we must repeat the word can, lead to an increased number of cases. Can. Is the doctor saying that the new variants have been discovered showing up, a new scientific term for us in evolving science, in Minnesota, and discovered popping up, another science editor expert term, in South Carolina, have not yet provided empirical evidence to support this alarming discovery? Well, this is where we find amplification on this theme from Maggie, the CNN science editor, as she reports that what scientists most fear is that one will mutate to the point that it causes more severe disease, bypasses the ability of test to detect it, or evades the protection provided by vaccination. While some of the new variants appear to have changes that look like they could affect immune response, it's only by a matter of degree. From there, Maggie goes on to introduce us to the B.1.1.7 variant first seen in Britain back in June, which had even prompted a new research report from the Scripps Research Center at the time, announcing that a novel coronavirus had appeared to have read the first report on zoonotic evolution. Maggie does not tell us about this, but this is what was actually inside the report at the time. Sprouting very rapidly in an emerging public health crisis, a significant mutation that enabled a novel coronavirus to go beyond normal mutations, occurring at the genome level, replacing amino acids and sequencing on a single strand of ribonucleic acid to effectuate an increase in the number of signature crowns on the surface of the sheath that encapsulates the active component of the novel coronavirus, which would naturally give it more opportunity to acquire a human host respiratory cell, an achievement for any virus that was truly extraordinary at such a rapid pace, but which received very little press attention at the time. At this B.1.1.7 variant, Maggie reports now is at the top of the list for American researchers since it has appeared in over 300 cases in 28 states, while Dr. Walensky, just getting warm in her job at the CDC, has issued warnings that it could, and we emphasize could, worsen the spread of the pandemic. Again, in sensationalizing prose, Maggie warns that these 300 states are only the cases caught by genomic sequencing, which is hit and miss in the U.S. And on this emotional roller coaster ride, Maggie then presents her readers with some assurances, reporting that although hearing about mutant new viruses can frighten people, scientists say they are reassured by what they have found. The human immune system can handle the variants that have sprung up so far, despite the increase in crowns, especially B.1.1.7. Did we not just hear a report that scientists were worried? Did she not just present a quotation from the new director at the CDC that she too appeared to be worried? Why would anyone be worried if the variant of leading concern for American scientists is something that scientists believe the human immune system can handle? Well, it becomes very clear shortly later that she provides another quotation, relying again upon the fallacy of authority wrapped neatly in a white lab coat bias, with assuring statements from Gregory Armstrong, the director of the Office of Advanced Molecular Detection at CDC, who says that as far as we know, it is transmitted in exactly the same way. What? Exactly the same way. And this means for those who may be concerned that the new vaccine rushed through production should, and we emphasize again, should still work, along with the prior approved means of prevention that failed to prevent a death toll approaching 500,000 or infections to suddenly start rising up in the battleground states right before the election, mask use, social distancing, avoiding large groups or crowds, and frequent hand washing. All facts that the leading infectious disease control expert should know better than anyone. This briefing has been unclassified. That concludes this briefing. My name is Major Mike Webb,
And by God, I am running for governor of Virginia. I ask every Christian, every conservative, every Republican, every Virginian, and every American troop to, like the motto of the infantry, follow me, and we shall overcome. Honest. And y'all come back now. Here.
This advertisement was authorized by Mike Webb.